And also 2.6 deals with graphing lines. Now, we already did one method of graphing line where we set up an X and Y table. We picked our X values, plugged them into the equation and got our Y values. And we needed at least 2 points. So the first method we're going to learn that'll give us our second way to graph a line is what we call graphing by intercepts. All right, so before I show you the steps to graphing by intercepts, I'm going to tell you what is a y-intercept and what is the x-intercept. So the x-intercept, that's where the graph crosses the x-axis. So it's where the graph crosses over the x-axis. Now, since the x-axis is the place where the x-intercept crosses over, that means the y value of the point is 0. So you'll have some number a followed by 0. So remember, the x-intercept has to look like an ordered pair. Okay. The y-intercept, that's where the graph crosses over the y-axis. So any point on that y-axis, my vertical line, any point on that has an x value of 0, and then the number for the y-intercept, okay? So it's also shown as an ordered pair, okay? So notice, if you can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept, that gives you 2 points. You can graph them 2 points and draw your line. So here goes the steps to graphing by using the intercepts. So the first thing we'll do, find the x-intercept. By setting y equal to 0 and solving for x. Because remember, right here, we said the x-intercept has a y value of 0. So if you plug 0 into your equation, solve it for x, that'll give you the x-intercept. So find that x-intercept and plot the point. So that's 1 point out of the way. So the second thing I'm going to do is find this y-intercept. So I'm going to find the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0, because notice on the y-intercept, x is 0. So we find it by setting x equal to 0 and solving for the y. Once I got that point, I'm going to plot the point. So I'm going to have a point on the y-axis, a point on the x-axis. At that point, draw a line through the points. So graphing by intercepts is nice because all we got to do is plug in zeros for the x and the y to get that other variable, plot them 2 points, okay? So let's graph a few of these. So for these exercises that I'm about to do, they want me to use the intercepts to graph the equation. All right, y'all. So the first one I'm going to do, so my number one will be x minus 5 equals y. So when I'm done, I'm going to find my x-intercept first by setting this y equal to 0. Then I'll find the y-intercept on the second point by setting the x equal to 0. So let's get our x-intercept first. The x-intercept, we set y equal to 0. So that's going to give me x minus 5 equals 0. So you're just plugging in 0 in for the y. Now solve this for the x. So if I want this x on the left side by itself, I got to move the -5 by adding 5. All right, y'all. So I bring down my x, 5 and -5 cancel. And that's going to equal what I got on the right side. 0 plus 5 is a 5. So my first point will be 5, 0. So then I need to come in and get that y-intercept. So remember, we said to get the y-intercept, we set the x equal to 0, which is what we got on our point. So if I set x equal to 0, I'm going to have 0 minus 5 equals my y. All I got to do on the left side is figure out what 0 minus 5 is. 0 minus 5 gives me a -5 equal to my y. So when x is 0, y is -5. So what I'm going to do now, using these 2 points, we had 5, 0, and we had 0, -5. Using them 2 points I just got, we're going to plot our line. So the first one was my x-intercept. Remember, it's going to end up on this x-axis going horizontal. So go right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since the y is 0, we stay there for our first point. Now the second point was my y-intercept, and it's going to end up on this y-axis. So 0 for the x, you start right in the middle, and then -5 for the y, we go down 5, so that we end up on -5. All right, y'all. We got 2 points, so at that point, we would draw our line and be done. Now remember, MATLAB will be picky. You have to use the intercepts when you're graphing these. So you're going to have a point on each line. Now, once you plot the second line, MATLAB is going to draw the line for you, okay? All righty, let's try another one of these. So my number 2 here is going to be 6x plus 5y equals 30. All right, so once again, remember, I'm going to get 2 points when I do this. The first one, I'll set y equal to 0 and get my x. The second one, I'll set x equal to 0 and get my y. So let's get this x-intercept first. All right, so to get the x-intercept, I'm going to set the y equal to 0. So that's going to give me 6x plus 5 times 0 equals 30. And if you notice, when you're using a 0 for one of these letters, it's basically getting rid of that letter. Because y'all, this gives me 6x plus 5 times 0 is 0. So this is going to give you 6x plus 0 equals 30. And y'all, 6x plus 0 is 6x equal to my 30. So if you just want to cancel that out at that point and come down with 6x equals 30, that's fine, because that's all we're doing. We're getting rid of the y variable by throwing that 0 in. Now to solve this for the x, we want that to be a 1x. So we got to divide both sides by that 6. So 6 divided by 6 makes that 1x. 30 divided by 6 gives us a 5. So our first point when we graph it will be 5, 0. So y'all, that's your x-intercept. Now we get the y-intercept by setting the x equal to 0. So that'll give me 6 times 0 plus 5y equals 30. Y'all look at that. Once again, 6 times 0 is 0. So that x term is totally gone. All that's left is the 5y equal to the 30. And y'all, you can cancel them out every time, because that zeros, when you multiply 0, it's just zeroing it out. All right, now we got 5y equals 30. Divide both sides by that 5, because we want that to be a 1y. So notice, 5 divided by 5 gives me 1y like I needed. 30 divided by 5 gives us a 6. So my second point is 0, 6. So let's see, right here will be my number 1. Here's the number 2 I'm doing. So notice now my points are going to be 5, 0 for the x-intercept, 0, 6 for my y-intercept. All right, y'all, so remember, here's your x-axis and your y-axis. 5, 0, just go right 5 and stop on that x-axis at 5. Put your first point. 0, 6. Start in the 0 in the middle and go up 6 on the y-axis. So notice these x and y intercepts are exactly on the number that they have shown. All right, y'all, this slope is downhill. So that line going downhill. All right, y'all, so that's the steps on here. Get them 2 points, plot them, and be done. So let's see what we have for my number 3. Now they're going to try to throw you a curveball here, because on this one, they got f of x equals -3 minus 3x. Y'all, the reason they're doing this is they want you to realize that f of x is the same thing as a y. So this is really y equals -3 minus 3x, okay? This is just function notation, and this is variable notation. So replace the f of x with a y, and then come in and make up your little table. I'm going to make 0 for the y first, and then 0 for my x. So first, I'm going to get the x-intercept by setting this y equal to 0. So I get 0 equals -3 minus 3x. Okay, y'all, so don't be fooled when they throw that f of x at you. Just trace that with a y and then get your points. All right, y'all, so nothing I can do on the right side. I need to get the -3x by itself. So I'm going to add a 3 to both sides. So now 0 plus 3 is 3. These 3's cancel. And all that's left is that -3x. All right, we want that to be a 1x. So divide both sides by that -3. So we'll have 3 divided by -3 equals -3 divided by -3x. All right, so let's see. The left side, that's unlike signs. So unlike signs, always make a negative answer. So 3 divided by -3 will be a -1. And then over here, -3 divided by -3, like signs make that a positive 1. So I got a positive 1x. So when y is 0, x is -1. All right, so let's get the y-intercept on this one by setting that x equal to 0. So I'm going to have y equals -3 minus 3 times 0. Well, look what happens here. I bring down my -3. This -3 times 0 is 0, so that's like you're subtracting 0. -3 minus 0 is -3. So when x is 0, my y is a -3. All right, so let me plot that one right here for my number 3. So remember, I had -1, 0, and I had 0, -3. Once again, that's your x-axis and your y-axis. All right, y'all, so I'm going to plot my x-intercept first, -1, 0. So you go left over here to -1, put your first dot. Then the y-intercept is 0, -3. So starting in the middle at 0, go down to -3. All right, y'all, we now have 2 points. So we're going to draw the line through them 2 points. So y'all, let me ask you this. Any questions on that graphing by intercepts? We just plug in zeros for the x's and y's and solve for the other variable. That gives us our 2 points. All righty then. Let's move on to the last method of graphing. So we've done the table where we picked any numbers we wanted and plugged them in. We've graphed by the intercepts, which gave me 2 points. So now we're going to look at graphing using the slope and the y-intercept. So we're looking at equations like y equals mx plus b. This little m, whatever number's in front of the x, that is your slope. This b at the end, whatever number is at the end of the equation, that is your y-intercept. And remember, the y-intercept is the point 0, b. So when you're in the slope-intercept form of a line, and you got that y by itself on one side or the other, whatever number's in front of the x will be your slope. Whatever number's at the end will be your y-intercept. So, steps to graphing using the slope and the y-intercept. So y'all, the first thing I'm going to do, they're giving me the y-intercept in the problem. So I'm going to plot the y-intercept. Okay. I'm going to plot that y-intercept because they're giving it to me. So that's my first step. Plot that point. Now, once I got that point drawn, I'm going to use the slope to get to the next point. I'm going to use the slope to get to the next point. So here's the thing. From the y-intercept, move the point up if it's positive or down if it's negative according to the top number. So according to the top number of the slope. Now, do not put the second point yet. Do not put second point yet. Because we're not finished. But what we'll do, we're going to start at our y-intercept. If it's a positive top number, I'm going to move up. If it's a negative top number, I'm going to move down. So from where we are now, move right. And we're only going to move right on these. So move right according to the bottom number of the slope. All righty. Once I go right, then I will mark my second point. Mark the second point where you land. And y'all, then the last thing we got to do, we got our first point from the y-intercept. We got our second point moving the slope. So we will draw a line through the points. Now, here's the thing. If your slope is negative, keep the negative with the top number. So if slope is negative, keep the negative with the top number. So that means the top is the only one that's going to have a choice about going up or down. The bottom is always going to be positive on our slope, and it's going to move us to the right. So remember, this is that rise over run stuff, okay? Now, this method is wonderful if these problems are already solved. But if they're not solved, then you got to solve it for the y to use this method. So that's the only downfall, is if it's not already solved for the y. But y'all, if it's already solved for the y, this is the most wonderful method there is. So let me show you some examples of graphing using the slope intercept. So on these examples, we're going to graph using the slope and the y-intercept. Y'all letting one in real quick. All righty. All right, y'all. So this first one, they were nice. They gave me y equals 5/3 x plus 6. All righty. So my m is my slope. The slope on this one is 5/3. Now, the one thing you got to remember, if you just got a number in front of the slope like a 2 or a 5 or a 7, you always got to treat it like it's got a 1 on the bottom when you're graphing, okay? But mine has the top and bottom. Now, here's my y-intercept. So my y-intercept will be 0 for the x and 6 for the y. So remember, that's telling me my starting point. So y'all, first thing we're going to do, we're going to plot the y-intercept. So remember, here's my y-axis and my x-axis. So the y-intercept will be on this vertical y-axis. So 0, 6, start at 0 for the x's and go up 6. So there's my first point. Now, we got to use this slope to get to the second point. So remember, the top number is positive. So what this one wants me to do is go up 5. Since that's a positive 5, we're going to go up. And then we're going to go right 3 according to the bottom number. So the bottom can only go to the right, okay? So let's start here at 6. We're going up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to go a little bit above my graph here to 5. So I'm at 11 now. Then it says go right 3 from there. So I'll go right 1, 2, 3. So my second point will be where I landed. All right, y'all, guess what? So up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right 3. That's what the slope's telling me, how to get from one point to the next. And y'all, I got 2 points. So then I draw my line and I'm done. All righty, y'all, on this next one here, they got f of x equals negative 2/3 x plus 8. And y'all remember, although they got an f of x there, that's really y equals negative 2/3 x plus 8. So f of x is still a y. It's just in function notation versus variable notation. So here's my m. My m on this one is a negative 2/3. Remember, keep the negative up top. My y-intercept is going to be 0, 8. All right, y'all. So we're going to start on the y-axis. So here's my x and my y. We're going to start at 0, 8, which will be 8 on the y-axis. So we come up 8, put our first point. So we're way up here at 8. So this slope is a negative 2/3. So what they want me to do is go down 2, because that's a negative 2. We're going to go down 2 and then right 3. So I got a positive 3 on bottom. It's only going to the right. So from this 8, we're going to go down 2. So down 1, 2. At the moment, I'm at 6. So then I'm going to go right 3. 1, 2, 3. Where I land, I'm going to put my second point. And then draw my line. Now, y'all remember this. This was a positive slope. Positive slopes go uphill, left to right. This one I just did had a negative slope. Negative slopes go downhill, left to right. So if your slope's positive, got to go uphill. Slope's negative, it's got to go downhill. Okay, y'all, and that's what that slope's doing. Up 5/3, down 2, right 3, okay? All righty, so let me pull this down just a little bit here. So where they get tricky, like I said, these were already solved and we were happy. But y'all, sometimes you get x plus 3y equals 12. So notice, this one's not solved for the y. So to use my slope intercept, I actually got to solve this for the y. Once I solve it for the y, I'll know my slope, my y-intercept. I can plot them and be done. All right, so to solve this for the y, we need a 3y by itself. So we're going to subtract x from both sides. That cancels. I now have 3y. Now I'm putting this in order. I want the x's first and then the number. Because remember, I want to be able to tell which one's for my slope and which one's for my y-intercept. So put them in order. Negative x, the 12 is positive, so it becomes added. All right, y'all. That's 3y. We need to make that a 1y. So divide everybody by 3. Now, y'all, there's not a number in front of the x at this point, so we're going to treat it like a 1. And divide that by 3, put my x, and then my 12 divided by 3. So remember, treat that like a 1 in front of the variable if it's not a number there. So that's how I got my -1 on top. So watch this. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1y. Cannot do nothing with that, so that's going to stay a -1/3 x plus 12 divided by 3 gives us a 4. So our slope is going to be the -1/3. My y-intercept will be 0, 4. So my starting point is going to be 4 on this y-axis here. So let's go up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put our first dot. Now, -1/3. The top number negative wants me to go down 1. So from 4, I go down to 3. And then right 3. So from 3, I go right 3. 1, 2, 3. So negative slope, down 1, right 3, draw that line. And if you notice, negative slopes, downhill, left to right. All right, y'all, looks like they like doing this f of x to us. So f of x equals, what do I got here? 1 4 x plus 5. So it's already solved. The only thing I would do is replace the f of x with a y. All righty, so it's already solved. I know my slope now is going to be a positive 1/4. My y-intercept is going to be 0, 5. All right, let's get our x-axis and our y-axis set up. So y-intercept goes up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put my first dot. Slope is positive, so it's going to go uphill to the right. So the top number is positive. I'm going to go up 1. So we're going to go up 1. So that puts me at 6, and then right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So up 1, and then we went right 4. But y'all, like I said, any signs go up top, so that means the bottom always goes right. All right, y'all, and then that has a line draw it, do it like that, okay? All righty. So let's see what we got next. So we're going to look at 2 special lines. So these are called special lines. All right, let me move the camera back up, it looks like. So we're looking at 2 special lines that we got. The first one, x equals some number a. When you got x equal to a number, this is a vertical line in which every ordered pair has an x value of A. Whatever that number is, that means every one of my ordered pairs is going to have that X value. So for your table, your X and Y table, both points for the X will be an A, or whatever that number is. So when you plot that, that's going to give us a vertical line. Now, the thing about a vertical line, if we were looking at the slope, remember the slope is the y2 minus the y1 over the x2 minus the x1. Well, if these x's are the same, that means you're going to get a 0 on bottom of the fraction for the slope. And anything that has a 0 on the bottom of a fraction, that gives you what we call undefined. Remember, you can't divide by 0, so that's how they get these undefined slopes on a vertical line. Now, second special line is y equal to some number. If your y is equal to a number, that's not going to be a vertical line. That's going to be a horizontal line in which every ordered pair has a y value of whatever that A is. So that means if you had a little table you was going to plot, the y would have to be the same no matter what x's you pick, the y has to be A. Up here, no matter what y values I pick, the x's had to be A. So now when the y has the same value, it's going to be a horizontal line going left to right. So the slope of this horizontal line, well, remember, the y2 minus y1 stuff is on top. So if they're the same number, you're going to get a 0 on top of the fraction divided by whatever's on the bottom. Well, 0 will divide by numbers. And when you divide 0 by any number, you get a 0. So we can have something like this. 0 over A equals 0. What we can't have is a number divided by 0. Any number divided by 0 is undefined. Every vertical line will be undefined. Every horizontal line will be a slope of 0. That's like the floors we walk on. They're horizontal. And if you're walking on a level floor, there's no uphill or downhill. It's all 0 slope, okay? So let's plot some of these. So y'all, for my first one, I'm going to do x equals 4. So they want me to graph these and figure out what the slope is, okay? So if I was going to graph this on a table, I need 2 points. Both of my x values would have to be 4. Now, I can pick any numbers in the world for my y values. So y'all, I like zeros a lot. And then how about if I use a 2 on this one? So no special numbers. I just pick 2 out of my head. But it gives me 2 points. So I'm going to plot 4, 0 first. Well, 4, 0 is going to be right on that x-axis. 4, 2, I'm going to go right 4 and up 2. Any other point, 4, 5, I'd go right 4, up 5. 4, -1, I'd go right 4, down 1. Every point that has an x value of 4 will make a vertical line. So now I want the slope of that vertical line. Well, we said a while ago that the slope of any vertical line was undefined. find. All right, y'all, so these aren't too bad. Let me try y equals a -3. So for this and y equals -3, I'm going to set up my table. Now remember, the number equals to y, so all these y's right here have to be -3. Now I can pick any x values I want. So what if I picked a -2 this time and a 5? Two numbers randomly picked. So let's plot them. So -2 will go left 2 and down 3. So 1, 2, 3. So my first point, -2, down 3. My second point will be 5, -3. So I'm going to go right 5 and down 3. So my second point would be right there. No matter what point, 0, -3, 1, -3, it don't matter. If the y values are -3, this line will go straight across. So then they wanted the slope. Well, remember the slope of a horizontal line we said was 0. So y'all, that's the trick to graphing these. If it's x equals a number, every x value is that number. If it's y equals that number, every y value is that number. Slopes are undefined for vertical. Slopes are 0 for horizontal. Okay. All right, y'all. So the last topic in this section deals with parallel and perpendicular lines. So let's look at parallel lines. So remember, parallel lines are lines that sort of look like they're doing the same thing. If this was going uphill, the parallel line is going to go uphill. If one line was going downhill, the parallel line would go downhill. But for lines to be parallel, that means their slopes have to be the same. So they must have the same slopes. So that means if the slope of my first line is a over b, then the slope of my second line has to be a over b. They gotta look exactly the same, okay? Now, perpendicular lines. Now, another thing, if you notice about these parallel lines, they never intersect. They never get closer to each other. They stay the same distance apart as they go forever and ever. Perpendicular lines, these are lines that are sort of intersect at a 90-degree angle, almost like the x and y axis. In fact, the x and y axes are perpendicular to each other because they form these 90-degree angles. And a perpendicular line intersects only one time, okay? Now, to be perpendicular, they must have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. So what I mean by that, if one slope is a over b, a negative reciprocal would be a negative b over a. So basically, you're flipping the fraction and making it negative. That means one of my lines can go uphill, and the perpendicular line will go downhill. Okay, so one uphill, one downhill. And notice they make a 90-degree angle where they intersect. So y'all, the last few examples on this section, they just want me to, let's start out doing this example here. They want us to determine whether the graphs of the parallel lines are parallel. All righty, so let's see what I'm getting here. So my first equation is y plus 3 equals 2x. My second equation is 2x minus a y equals a -3. So I got to figure out the slope of each of these lines. And to find that slope, I got to solve them for the y. So we're going to solve the first equation first. So we're going to go to the first line. The first line was y plus 3 equals 2x. We need to get this y by itself, so we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So doing that, I get y, the 3's cancel on the left side, and then I'm going to put my x first. So I'm going to have 2x minus 3. The slope of this line is a +2. So then we look at the slope of our second line. Our second line is 2x minus y equals -3. We're going to solve this one for the y. So first off, we're going to move the 2x by subtracting. And y'all, I'm just going to cancel these two x's out. So that brings down that -y. I'm going to put my x first and then my number. So I'm going to have -2x minus 3. But remember, we need to make this y positive. So divide all three of these by a -1. So divide the y by the -1, the -2 by the -1, and then that -3 at the end by the -1. So here the negatives cancel, giving me a y. -2 divided by -1 gives me a 2x. And then that -3 divided by -1 makes that a +3. So our slope of the second line is the number in front of the x, which is a 2. So their question was, are these lines parallel? Well, y'all, they got the same exact slope. So since they got the same exact slope, yes, these lines are parallel. All right, so let me play with some of that. Let's see if one's perpendicular or not. So for this one, we're going to determine whether the graphs of the two equations are perpendicular. All right, so let's get our two equations. I got, let's see what I got. I got a y equals 5x minus 2 for my first line. My second line, I got 2y equals 7 minus x. So let's find the slope of these two lines. And y'all actually look at this. My first line has y equals 5x minus 2. It's already solved for the y, so I know my slope on this line is going to be 5. So my first line has a slope of 5. Let's look at our second line. We got 2y equals 7 minus x. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my x first and then my number. So I'm just rearranging the right side so that I got a negative x plus 7. That way, when you get your slope, you don't confuse it with that intercept, okay? All right, that's a 2y, divide everybody by 2. Now remember, there's not a number here, so we treat that like a negative 1 in front of that x, and then divide my 7 by the 2. So y'all, that cancels, giving me my 1y. Negative 1/2, I can't do nothing with that, so that's going to stay negative 1/2 x. And then that 7/2, I really can't do nothing with that. That's going to stay 7/2. But what I needed was the slope. And the slope is the number in front of the x, which is a negative 1/2. So these two slopes are not negative reciprocals of each other. So then this would be no, these are not perpendicular. Okay. Y'all, I'll show you what two perpendicular ones look like. If I had something like y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4, and my second one had y equals 3/2 x minus 7. These ones would be perpendicular because the slope of the first one is negative 2/3. The slope of the second one is flipped and opposite in sign. So this is its negative reciprocal. So if you find something like this, these lines would be perpendicular, okay? But y'all, these slopes are not, although one's positive and one's negative. If you flip 5, you get 1/5 and not a 1/2, okay? This is what perpendicular lines would look like. All right, y'all, so we're due 2.6 finally. So we get to knock out 2.7. And 2.7 does not have as much problems as they had in 2.6. And in this 2.7, we're just going to find equations of lines. We're just going to find equations of lines. Our first formula is the y equals mx plus b. This is called the slope-intercept form of a line. If I know my slope and I know my y-intercept, I can plug them right in and get my equation. Now, another formula we'll look at. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to use this formula when I know one of my points, x1 and y1, and I know my slope. This formula is called the point slope form of a line. Now, the only other formula that's going to help me in this section is what if I don't know my slope? So remember, the slope is still the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is the slope formula. So y'all, these are the three formulas we're going to use in this section. Now our goal is to make them all in the end look like the y equals mx plus b, okay? So y'all, here we go. We're going to find the slope-intercept equation of the line. So find the slope intercept equation of the line. All right, so look what they're giving me. They're telling me the slope on this one is -3, and I have a y-intercept of 0, 4. So y'all, I'm going to the first formula, because all I need to put into this first formula is the slope and the intercept, which is the y-intercept. They're giving me both of these. So our equation will be y equals, in place of the m, we're going to put our slope, which is -3. Then we're going to bring down our x. A y-intercept is 4. So I'm going to add a +4. Final answer. Plug in for the slope, plug in for the y-intercept, and there is our equation in slope-intercept form, okay? How about this? Slope is 5.3. And the y-intercept is going to be 0, -6. All right, I'm giving the slope again, the y-intercept, so I'm going to plug it right into this formula up here. So I'm going to have y equals my slope, which is 5.3x, and then my intercept is a -6, so I'm going to make that a -6. So you're going to love plugging into this formula when they give you the slope and the y-intercept. But y'all, what about this one? What if they gave me m equals 4? Remember, m is the slope, so they're still giving me the slope. But now, not the y-intercept they're giving me a 0.31. So here's what's happening on here. They're giving me the slope and another point other than the y-intercept. So I'm going to come up here and use the point slope form. We use that when we got a point and our slope. Now remember, in the formula, this is going to be x1, and that's going to be the y1. You're plugging in for the ones that got the numbers by them. The other y and the x will be the ones that are at the end of the formula, okay? So here we go. We got y minus y1, which is 1, equals my m, which is 4, times x minus x1, which is 3. So for the point, plug in for the x1 and the y1. Now we just simplify this. So to simplify this formula, you start out by multiplying through these parentheses. So bring down this y minus 1. Multiply the 4 times the x, you get a 4x. Multiply the 4 times the -3, you get a -12. So y'all, we're almost there. We just got to take care of this -1. So to make this y by itself, we're going to add 1 to both sides. And we have a number over here that we're going to add the 1 to. Because remember, this is like terms. The 1 cannot add to the x's, okay? All right, y'all, watch this. Bring the y down. Those ones cancel. Over here, bring down your 4x. -12 plus 1 gives us a -11. All right, we're now in slope-intercept form. So this is our final answer. So sometimes if you're given a point that's not the y-intercept, you're going to use that point slope formula, okay? All right, y'all, let's try this again. And let me get my paper turned over for us. All right, so on this one, y'all, let's see if my camera's up. There you go. On this one, they're giving me m equals -8, and they're giving me the 0.90. But y'all, they're messing with you. They're trying to make you think you got a y-intercept, but this is not the y-intercept. This is an x-intercept. So that means since it's not the y-intercept, we got to use the point slope formula again. Since that's not the y-intercept. So remember, that's not the y-intercept. The y-intercept will be 0, 9, not 9, 0. So this will be x1 and y1 will be the 0. So here we go. Y minus my y1, which is 0, is going to equal m, which is -8, times my x minus my x1, which is 9. Y'all like this one because when the y value is 0, y minus 0 is y on the left side. Over here, to get rid of these parentheses, I'm going to distribute that -8. So -8 times x is a -8x. That -8 times that -9, two negatives make that a +72. So now we got our equation in the slope-intercept form, and we're done. All right, so this section didn't have very many homework problems, so we're down to the last one. But y'all, this one's a doozy. Because look what they're giving me on this one. They still want me to find the equation of the line containing the given pair of points. So y'all, my 2 points are 4, 3, and 12, 7. So notice, I cannot use the slope-intercept because I don't know the slope. I can't use the point slope form yet because I don't know the slope. So guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to find the slope using our slope formula. Once I know my slope, I can pick one of them 2 points and plug it into the point slope formula to get our final answer. So my slope formula was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to call these two x1 and y1. This will be x2 and y2. So the ones denote they're the first point, and then the twos here, these subscripts, denote my second point. So let's plug in what we got. Y2 is 7, minus y1 is 3. X2 is 12, minus x1 is 4. Now you always got to go in the same order on these. If you start with this y minus this one, you got to start with this x minus this one, okay? All right, y'all, so let's see what we get. 7 minus 3 is 4 on the top. 12 minus 4 is 8. And guess what? We can reduce this fraction from a 4/8 into a 1/2. So we now know that our m is 1/2. So now I'm going to use the first point, which was 4, 3. I'm now going to call this x1 and y1 and use them with the slope and plug that into my point slope formula like I did a while ago. So here we go. Y minus Y1 will equal our M times X minus X1. All right, y'all. So let's plug in for the Y1, the M, and the X1. So this will give me Y minus Y1, which is 3, equals our M, which is a 1/2, times X minus the X1, which is 4. All right, y'all. So let's see what we get. Y minus 3. I cannot do nothing yet. So I'm going to bring down to Y minus 3. Right here, I'm going to distribute 1/2 times X is just a 1/2 X. But here, 1/2 times -4. So 1/2 of -4 would be like -4 divided by 2, which is a -2. So bring down the -2. So y'all, whatever number y'all get here, if it's a 6, you'll take 6 and divide by 2. If it's an 8, you'll take 8 divided by 2. Since that top number's a 1, all we're basically doing is dividing this by 2, okay? All right, y'all, look at this. One more step. To get this Y by itself, I got to add 3 to both sides. So look, here comes my Y. That cancels. 1/2 X comes down. Because remember, the number can't add to the X's. Here I got -2 plus 3. That's going to give us a +1. I now have my equation in slope-intercept form. So we are done. So y'all, that's the trick on these equations of the lines. You gotta see what they're giving you to determine which of them formulas you need to start with. Now your last one will be the only one that you have to actually find the slope first. Once you find the slope, you can technically use either one of these points over here, okay? If I'd used 12 and 7, I'd have got the same equation of a line, okay? All right, y'all, so let me see. So that is 2, 6 and 2, 7. So we got rid of both of them today. Thursday, all we're doing Thursday night is reviewing for test 2. So y'all, all you're going to have to do this week is the 2, 6 homework, 2, 7, and test 2 by Sunday night. So Thursday night, that's all I'm doing. And test 2 only has 20 questions on it, okay? So it's not quite as long as that first test was. All right, y'all. So here's the point where I'm wanting to know, do y'all have any questions for me? All right. And something else I'll probably do Thursday, I might try to send y'all some kind of bonuses for this next test. So that y'all can get maybe 5 bonus points somehow, okay? So let me let one more in real quick. All right, so I'm gonna try to find something for y'all to do for bonus, usually like a question out of my test or something. All right, y'all, so that's it. So y'all got 2, 6 to do tonight, 2, 7, and I'm gonna quit our recording so I can send that out in a little bit.